Hey Crooks, I'm excited to be back and announce that I'm resuming making more Torn content for YouTube on hopefully a more regular basis again. Initially, back in 2023, I was going through a divorce, and that's was a primary, contributing factor for me going on hiatus from YouTube. So no more ring there. And eventually, the cycle of procrastination dug its nails into me a little bit, as making content, depending on what I'm doing, requires some preparation, it's a little bit of work and editing. Not to mention, my old PC, while it did have an i5 processor, the thing had to be getting close to like 10 years old, and I just really needed a new rig. So I'm set up now on a new gaming PC. I've also got a better microphone based on some comments I saw giving me a little bit of flack for the audio quality, so hopefully this is better. This video is mostly going to be an update for my buddy banking program, how that's going, and some changes that I've made to my process. Before I get into that, I'll just also say that the next future videos I'd like to do, initially I want to focus on Crimes 2.0 and Organized Crimes 2.0 because they're just a huge change, and I'd like to go over those in quite a bit of detail. I'd also like to cover more Torn calendar events. I know I just missed Easter, which somebody requested a video on, and I think that I could give some good advice and some summary about that. I know Museum Day is like right now as I'm doing this recording, although there's not a whole lot to say about that. Definitely want to cover Halloween, more map walkthroughs for Christmastown, because Christmastown is a huge deal. Even things like World Tiger Day. And I'm not going to cover every Torn calendar event. Believe me, like Awareness Week, right? I don't think that deserves any more awareness. I would also like to do an introduction to becoming a trader video, perhaps another video with some more intermediate or advanced money-making tips. Eventually, I'll have to get around to sharing some ranked war advice. I might do a video as an update for my lingerie store that I've had for over 2 years, and we've been at 10 stars for a little while now. Maybe. I don't know if folks would be interested in that, but I can share how that's been going. And then, lastly, this might not be for everybody, but so many folks just tell me that they hate reading. And a lot of us laugh at that because Torn is a text-based game, but I get it. Not everybody wants to read massive amounts of text, and if you are among that group of players, then you could be missing out on a lot of information, and just a lot of people prefer hearing a friendly voice going through some stuff. So for those members of the audience, I really might just start doing newspaper article read-through and reaction videos. If that's not your thing, ignore them. But I think some people might be interested in like an audio video format so that they don't have to think about reading the newspaper. So all that aside, let's go ahead and dig into my buddy banking investment kind of program. So in episode 16, I mentioned my vision of wanting to sponsor players, invest in their accounts, share the passive income with them, grow it over a long period of time. That's still the case. I get questions all the time about it, and my episode 16 video just continues to get seemingly more views than any of my other videos. So I think it was worth elaborating in more detail. Just to clarify, yes, I'm still doing it. I'm not going to share specific information yet about exactly how many bankers are on my team, how big my total investment portfolio is or my net cash flow, things like that. I'd rather keep a little bit private for now. I may do some kind of more exclusive video that's not just free, public to the whole world, maybe in the future. But for now, I'll just say I've got dozens of players who I've invested in, and largely it has been a success. I've had a couple of issues. The issues that I've had have exclusively been with players who are holding symbiotic stock blocks for me. In some cases, players just were not collecting their weekly dividends timely enough and sending them to me timely enough. Sometimes I noticed they would be offline for more than 7 days, and you are not, you can't possibly be collecting a weekly dividend if you go offline for any more than 6 days. Sometimes a player will go inactive for a bit, which scares me. I've had one who went inactive for quite a while. I had thought I had lost the entire investment. Eventually they returned, saw that I had sent them a number of mails and chats, reached out to me. They sold the block, sent me all my cash back. They told me that they were quitting the game, and then they gave me everything else that they owned. So, including the money that was originally mine, and then everything else they gave me, it was like $1 billion. So, that was initially a complete loss that then turned into a big donation, which really paid for another total loss, and it was also on a symbiotic stock block holder. The player, at that time, I was being a bit careless. I wasn't reviewing the candidate's player profile and their stats well enough. In hindsight, looking back, there were red flags that would have jumped out at me, and I would never, at this point, invest in a player based on some of the stats that they had. Basically, I caught on that I was talking to a multi, and this was an individual who was, talking to me through multiple accounts. It was pretty obvious based on just seeing the same communication style, mode of communication, and some other similarities between their accounts. And so I just reported both accounts, and they both got fetid permanently. So, complete loss on that investment. It was a scam. So far, I believe that's the only true time I've been scammed, but I really blame myself. Torn is torn. You can't blame the scammer So, I did have one complete loss of a symbiotic block. Like right now, that's worth, around $340 million in the game. But I also had one who came back to activity and gifted me more than that amount which covers that loss. So those were a wash, I would say. More recently and currently to date, I really only have one investment, which is in default. I've had a couple sim holders that came back to me and said, hey, I just can't really be trusted with somebody else's money. I recently, after I bought the stock, I had sold it and then I gambled the money away. Don't feel great about that, but I've gotten the money back, and here it is for you. Here's all your money back. But I do have one, I would say, an active investment in default with a player who's been offline for almost 3 months now. And from a big picture perspective, the dollar amount of one sim block, it's not a significant portion of the portfolio. I'm keeping track of it. You never want anything to go into default like that, but it's not stopping me from continuing to expand what I'm doing. So that's an overview of kind of the risk that's involved and some default events that I've experienced so far. Generally speaking, I would say there are 3 ways that you all could get involved in what I'm doing if you're interested. Number 1, the most popular. People want to hold my money and receive a share of the profits. If you're interested, there's a link to a Google form in the description of this video where you can apply to join my banking team. Some people ask if there's anything that they can do to kind of move up in the waiting list. To be honest, I don't want to be unfair to people who've been waiting longer, although I would say, and I don't want to be too public about this, but if you're, at this far into the video, I'm assuming you're more friendly to me than what a scammer would be. I would say if you are looking for ways to fast track your way onto my banking team, try to get into my faction or consider joining my flying team and let me buy the imports that you bring in from other countries from your flying. I'm not the absolute best paying trader in the game. That's just not my strategy. But the majority of the feedback that I get about my pricing, which I now use Torn Exchange, is that my pricing is good and better than a good amount of other traders that trade like I do. So that's my pricing strategy. In any event, if you are frequently using me as one of your primary or your main trader, that's going to help build trust between us. And obviously, if you join my faction, I do try to give preferential treatment to my faction mates when choosing who I want to invest with. Secondly, if you're interested in investing and plugging into my portfolio, I am recently, now that the whole portfolio has grown to a pretty significant size, I am opening it up to outside investors. So far, I am using some faction funds to plug into this system so that my faction can benefit from some passive income. I also have a couple faction mates that have invested a significant amount of money, and also one of my former stock block holders who was previously receiving the passive income on my money. Eventually they bought back their capacity for that bank capacity or the stock block, and now they're to the point where they want to come back and invest back into my portfolio. So basically, if you want to invest with me, the full amount of whatever you invest, I put in my banking team's banks, and they still get their share of the profits. Right now it's just 50% of the entire dividends go to the investment holder. Of the remainder of that, personally I take like a 2.5% of all profits as a management fee, and then the investor receives a remaining 47.5% of the total interest profits, which, based on the recent interest rates for banks, after the 50% to the whole banker and the 2.5% to me, that gives the investor approximately 35 to 36% annual ROI, which is still better than like almost all of the stock blocks. So you can apply to be a banker, you can join as an investor, and the benefits, I mean, if you really want to get into this, you could do it on your own. You could find your own buddy banker that you select yourself, and you put your money directly in their bank, and if they walk away, you lose everything. Or you can invest with me. I get a small, but I think reasonable management fee, and your funds are invested in my portfolio overall. So your risk is diversified and spread out across dozens of players. Any single default would be just a small percentage reduction on your ROI. And in addition to having the benefit of just plugging into my established and I think reliable process for selecting trustworthy bankers, and I'm the one following up, keeping track of the dividend payout dates, but I also have an insurance fund. And so that's kind of a third, my last of three main points that you can get involved. Apply to be a banker, invest with me, or you can donate to my Pay It Forward / investment fund or insurance fund. So this is something that I started in January, primarily as a way to ensure that I have some kind of insurance plan. And this is largely driven by donations, mostly from my banking team themselves. So this fund is really, the money is under my management, but it's just a portion of my budget that I make sure that I use according to a certain policy. Now, any donations to this fund, 100%, they just get put straight into the next person's bank. And the banker still gets their 50% of the profits, but the remaining 50%, is the fund's share of the profits. And so that, the fund's share of profits is used, and this is how I split it up. Basically, 51% or 100% of it for now is just reinvested into more banks, period. I say 51 or 100. So if there's a time where I have any active default balance, which currently I do, it's not huge, but I have a balance in default. When that happens, a portion of the profits I will take as an insurance reimbursement to me. But it's less than half, so if you donate to this, the majority of the money is still going to be supporting passive income for other players at large, and a minority of the interest profits can be used, I would take to reimburse me to recover any lost investments. Now, eventually, this fund is going to grow to a very large balance. So once it reaches a more mature state, I'd say around $2 billion, at that point I'm going to shift my policy and start using a portion of the interest profits as a giveaway budget, because the intent of this is truly just to ensure continued growth and further investments in other players, and also so that I have at least some kind of insurance plan to manage the risk that I take by expanding my buddy banking program to the scale at which I've taken it. I don't know how. I didn't invent buddy banking. I've seen other players have done it before me. I don't know who has the biggest buddy banking portfolio. If you're watching this and you have a big buddy banking portfolio, chat me up. I'd be curious to have a dialogue. So yeah, I think that's mostly all I wanted to say about the Pay It Forward fund. If you want to support me and what I'm doing and contribute to sharing more wealth with newer players, like one of the people who donated to me from the forums said it best in the text of their cash send. They just said, "Noobs matter." And I agree with that wholeheartedly, and I hope that's obvious. So if you want to support, consider making a donation. If you decide you're going to leave the game, maybe consider that instead of just posting something in the forums and doing a big lotto giveaway and spreading it out in one-time donations, consider donating to my fund, because it would be a gift that truly keeps on giving. On an unrelated note, my faction has been growing and with a lot of respect. We've had some pretty great players join in the last few months, and I'm expecting that within the next 2 or 3 months, I will be making the jump to go from 80 member capacity to 100 member capacity. So if you are interested in joining my faction, definitely let me know. We're going to be expanding hopefully soon, and even in the meantime, we're reviewing players performance and user activity stats in several areas on a monthly basis, and the players who are clearly underperformers and dead weight, frankly, after giving them feedback and an opportunity to improve their activity, we just purge, some of the lowest hanging fruit on a monthly basis. So if you're looking for a new faction, hit me up. Maybe you can join us at Sons of Torn. That's all I've got for this video. Thanks for joining me. Make sure that you're subscribed so that you are notified when new videos come out. And do me a favor and like this video. It would really help me out. Thanks, everyone.